Alright, so now we're going to start drawing our kid for the poses. So I'm going to zoom out and so that I can draw my character off to the side on the pasteboard area. I'm going to make sure that I'm on a new layer, so I'm not on any of my symbols. And I'm going to use a variety of tools. I'm going to start with the oval tool, and I'm going to draw my character all in black. So I'm going to use the fill color as well. Use it black. And if you hold the shift button down, you'll be able to get a perfect circle. So I'm going to draw them larger just so I can get the detail, and I can transform them to make them smaller and fit on the stage later on. So I'll start with the head, and then I will use the brush tool to start brushing in his body. Okay, now I'm going to use the free transform tool and just select all of that character so that I can shrink it down, make sure that it is going to fit on my screen properly. Okay, so I want it about that size, so I'm going to convert that to a symbol. Boy. And click OK. And then we'll distribute that to the layers. Alright, there it is down there. Now, I want to create a couple poses for this character, so I'm going to double click on the symbol. Okay, so that we go into that symbol layer. And I don't want to transform the size of the character now because I want it to stay the same, but I'm going to zoom in on it so that we can make some adjustments. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to click on the next to the first frame, and we want to right click and insert a keyframe. Now I'm going to use the lasso tool, and I'm going to lasso his arm. And now I'm going to use the free transform tool and grab this pivot point and move it up to be at the shoulder, so that when I hover over an end corner and rotate, it's going to rotate at that new pivot point so I can make it look like he's waving. I will need to clean this up a bit, so using the brush tool, I'll just fix this piece here. And I'll want to use the eraser tool to clean that up. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some flames coming out of his shoes. So I'm going to use the brush tool again. This time I'm going to choose a red. And I'm going to draw some flames coming out of his shoes. Because he is going to fly. Okay, and I might even add in some orange. Okay, so that can be our second pose. Now for our third pose, we're going to click on and insert another keyframe. This time I'm going to want to delete those flames. So I'm going to click on and just delete all of that stuff. And I'm going to change his smile. So I'm going to use the oval tool again. And we'll just draw it off to the side here. We'll add in some lines for our teeth. And then I'm going to want to just select all of that so I can just drag a box around it so it's all selected. And I'm going to drag it onto the face. Now it's a little big, so I might want to transform that smaller a little bit. And I think I might rotate it just a smidge as well. Now I'll go back to my selection tool so I can position it back in place there. So now I've got an additional pose. And this time I'm going to draw out an owl. So again, I'm going to use the brush tool, and I'm going to select some colors to draw out my owl. And again, you can draw it fairly large because we can shrink it down to size later. So the larger you draw it, the easier it will be to get more detail. Let's see, I'm not going to draw wings for my owl because we're going to use those in our nested animation. So I'm just going to draw the body of the owl. Alright, once you've got your owl drawn out, we want to select all of that owl and right click, convert it to a symbol. I'm going to name it owl, and then again right click and distribute it to the layers. Now that it's down in our layers, I can double click on the owl symbol to go into it, and I'm going to draw in the wings. So again, I'm going to draw these off to the side. And I'll just fill that in. Might even add a bit more detail. I want to convert it to a symbol, call it wing, and then I'm going to use the free transform tool, and I'm going to move this pivot point to be at the top so that when I hover over the corner and I rotate, I can move it to make it look like a flapping position. So I'm going to resize this wing a little bit and position it in place. It's a little wide, so I'm going to make it a bit more narrow. And then I'm going to hold the Alt button down and click and drag to get a copy of that wing, so I don't have to redraw it. Position that in place. Now holding the Shift button, select both of those wings, and we're going to distribute those to the layers so that I have two separate wing layers now. Alright, so on the first wing layer, I want to, in fact, I'm going to, on layer 1, I'm just going to rename that the body of the owl, and then I'm going to lock it so I don't accidentally click and move things around. So go back and click on one of those wings, and we're going to right click on it. We want to create a motion tween. So it's created a motion tween for the first 24 frames, which is 1 second. Now you notice your owls disappeared. That's just because the body layer should be at the bottom so that we can see it. And also we need to insert some frames here. So if I right click, I want to insert frame. Now that owl reappears. Now I'm going to go to about on that wing where we've created a motion tween on frame 10 there, about that. I'm going to rotate the wing up to what I want it to be its highest position in flapping, so maybe about there. And then over around frame 20 we're going to bring it back down into his resting position. So now if I move the scrubber over up and down, I can see how that wing is going to flap. So we're going to repeat that on the other wing. So right click on the other wing, and again we want to create a motion tween. And then at frame 10 as well, we're going to position that, rotate it so it's about the same. And then again over at frame 20 we will rotate it and bring it back down to its resting position. So now if I flap those, move the scrubber, I can see it's got its flapping and its nested animation.